Hi, welcome back to Realism Unlocked. Today is day 3 of this 3-day charcoal art challenge. In day 1, we learned about how values bring form to your artwork, and in day 2, we learned about how edges bring focus to your artwork. Today is day 3, and we are going to discover another beautiful key which brings life to your art, that is textures. And we are going to create this beautiful sketch in today's tutorial. Let's get started.
For today's sketch, I'm taking a A5 size sheet and I'm taping on all four sides. Today we'll be doing in a landscape mode. First draw two ovals for the construction and then we will add the finer details to the outline. These are going to form the base for our shells. I have pinned the line diagram on top left corner for your reference. You could also download the reference image from the companion email that comes with this art challenge. And if you want to sign up for the companion emails, check the link in the description below. Now I'm adding the finer details to the upper shell. The outer edge has a wavy outline. Just follow along the oval that you drew and then add the finer details as per the reference image. There is a small outward structure here which I am drawing now. Now I am drawing the details on the lower shell. And there is also a wavy outline on the bottom portion of this shell. And I'm erasing the construction ovals that we drew initially. And then draw a circle for the pearl. Now I'm using an eraser pencil for erasing the additional lines. With that, the outline is done. Let's begin applying charcoal. I have taken a white bristle brush of size 1 with a little bit of charcoal dust on its tip. I am blending it in the shell. Now I am taking a flat bristle brush and creating a lighter outline for the background. By adding a lighter background or some shade to the background, the shell, which is completely white, will pop up. This is an absolutely optional step, but it makes your shells pop up and the pearl pop up when you add a lot of reference value to the background. I'm taking a bigger filbert brush. Now I'm gently blending all the background with a bigger filbert brush. It's a hard bristle brush. Just blend in circular motion to get a soft blending. Now I'm taking a little more charcoal dust onto the brush and making the top portion of the background darker to create a kind of gradient in the background from dark to light. And I'm blending the darker tone into the lighter tone of the background. Just gently blending with circular motion in the brush. Now I'm using a soft bristle brush to blend it further. And a clean white brush to further blend it into the lighter tones. We'll come back to the background later. Now let's go back to the shell. I'm using a hard charcoal pencil to add the minor details and then blending it with a small round brush. Just darkening the tone and then blending with a brush. And then I'm drawing the outline of the upper shell where it creates a shadow onto the lower shell. Just follow along the wavy outline. And now I'm using a flat brush to blend in the shadow. I use a flat brush when I need a crisp blending. Now I'm doing the same thing on the outside of the pearl where there is shadow. Mainly I'm creating all the darker tones so that they serve as a reference for applying the midtones and the highlights. As this is a smaller area, I'm still using my small brushes. Now I slightly switch to a little bigger brush of size 2 and blending it together. With a little bit of charcoal dust, I'm blending it again. Let's do the same thing on the other side of the pearl. On this side as well, I'm using the flat brush and creating that outline of the shadow around the pearl. Now I'm using a bigger brush of size 2 and adding that shadow with a little bit of charcoal dust. And blending everything in circular direction. Same thing I'll do on this side. With little more charcoal dust, I'm blending in this region and slowly covering all this area. And this region as well. And slowly blending it to create a soft lighter tone. Now I'm taking a medium charcoal pencil and I'm further creating the outline of the upper shell. This is where its shadow is going to fall, and I'm following the wavy outline. Similarly, we'll do for the other shell. This too has a wavy outline. Just darkening that shadow with the pencil. And then blending it all with a soft flat brush. Same thing on this side of the shell. Now I'm extending the shadow. And using a bigger brush to blend in the shadow. Now I'm using a soft brush to extend the shadow. And slowly blending it. using a bigger brush for larger area of the shadow. I'm taking some more charcoal dust and applying there to create that shadow. And blending it well. And using a flat brush to create that edge, kind of a surface on which the shell is kept. Now I'm using an eraser pencil and erasing on the inside of the pearl to create a white sharp outline, and erasing if any blending of the shadow has entered inside the pearl boundary, and then picking up the dust using a kneadable eraser with a pointed tip. This is a very beautiful section where we are creating a kind of blended shadow on the lower side of this shell. This creates a lot of realism to this shell. If you observe the reference image, you will see that there is a very light mid-tone that follow along the wavy shape of the shell. It's kind of the shadow is getting blended and creating that effect of mid-tone, and it also kind of give a sense of that shape to the shell. And there are also thin lines, soft lines that are running inside the shell, which are eventually the shadow of the wavy structure of the shell. Keep these lines very light and gentle. I'm using a soft brush to keep my pressure minimal because I want these lines to be absolutely light and soft. And with very light pressure, I'm blending them. Now I'm adding the shadow to the lines on the upper shell, and these lines are curvy lines. They are the shadow created by the wavy structure of the upper shell. Each line is a curved pattern, and make sure you apply this region with very light pressure because later we are going to create some lines on it using eraser. To get bright highlights, or if you want to create bright highlights later using an eraser, apply the base tone with a soft brush or with minimal pressure. Don't use a hard brush or don't use it with a lot of pressure. This makes the charcoal stick to the paper well, which will later be difficult for you to pick up those highlights using your eraser. gently darkening these regions. You can see the reference image how this area is darker compared to the lower portion of the same shell. And I'm gently blending all the lines, and they are going to converge to the tip of that top portion. And I'm using a tinted soft brush and adding a soft gradient there. And I'm also using a flat brush for the edge. Using a soft brush, I'm darkening the lines with very gentle pressure. Now the structure looks like a curved and wavy shell. Make it darker wherever required. And I'm also blending on the inner side of the lower shell. Now, using a soft brush, I'm adding the shadow to the inside of the ball. This is a very light tone, so just move your brush in circular direction along the shadow of the shell and the ball, so that some of the shadow, the charcoal on the shadow will enter inside the ball. And then blend it gently. Now I'm using a smaller brush, a small round brush, for adding other details on the pearl. The texture of the pearl is lustrous and also kind of chalky because it's made of calcium. So observe the reference image and see how the surface is shiny. And to create that, we have to bring in good contrast between the light and dark tones as well as the highlights. The darker tones has to follow the shape of the pearl. By doing so, it will create that sense of spherical object. Now I'm using a soft brush without taking any charcoal and just blending it in that spherical shape to create the mid-tone. And the pearl is slowly taking shape. Now I'm blending the dark tone with the mid-tone, and then using a small soft brush, I'm adding a little darker tone and blending it well. And making it a little more darker. Now I'm using a soft brush and blending it gently. And I'm using a flat brush to add those details on the ball, which is the reflection of the wavy lines on the shell. These are like soft, light lines which are curved in shape. If you make straight lines, then the pearl wouldn't look spherical. So make sure you draw them in a curved line as well as light tone. They should look like they are the reflection of the waved lines on the shell. Then I am blending the shadow around the pearl to bring everything together. And using a white bristle brush to blend in and make the charcoal come together. Now I'm using a pencil eraser to add in the highlights. Adding highlights is my most favorite part. So now I'm adding that brightest highlight on the pearl. And then I'm using a kneadable eraser to create a soft transition around that bright highlight. And then we have some soft highlight on the side of the pearl. The pearl is lustrous, does not entirely metallic, so you will not have completely sharp transition between the highlights and the dark tones. So there will be a little bit of blended transition between the soft highlight as well as the shadows. So if you keep this in mind, then your pearl will look very natural. Then I'm using the kneadable eraser to create some lighter tones on the lower side of the pearl. And then a pencil eraser for further highlights. And then I'm blending the shadow. And we also have some highlights on the shell, like very little in between the lines that we drew for the wavy structure of the shell. Then I'm taking the small brush with little bit of charcoal for adding these darker details. These details are optional, but if you want to make it look closer towards the reference image, then you can add them. And I'm slightly blending on the lower side. Now the best part is I'm taking a battery eraser and adding a white wavy line on the edge of the shell. This makes it look very real. And I'm also creating that line on this side of it as well. And make sure the tip of your battery eraser is very thin or pointed so that the line comes out very neat. The third key to achieve realism in charcoal art is by creating textures. We already saw how we created texture for the pearl, which had a lustrous surface, and now we'll see how we can create the texture for the shell. I'm taking a pencil eraser with a pointed tip and I'm drawing thin lines on the light base tone that we had drew. Adding these thin lines will create a lot of texture on the shell, making it look real. You could observe this texture in the reference image, and the tip of my eraser pencil is very sharp. You could achieve this either by using an eraser pencil or by using a battery eraser. Both will work well. And both has to be having a sharp tip. Now I'll demonstrate the same thing using a battery eraser with a sharp tip. And it's much easier with a battery eraser. I'll draw all the lines on the lighter base tone that we had done. These lines have to be parallel and they should not be broken. Draw very thin lines close to each other, and all the lines will converge on the top. So I'm adding those converging lines. And erasing wherever required. And I'm brushing off all the eraser dust. And using a flat white brush, a filbert brush, I'm just blending the background lightly to make it look more even. And I'm correcting the baseline of the surface. That's the final day of our 3-day charcoal art challenge. Do share your creations on IG and tag me. I would love to see them. Thanks for participating in this challenge.